Welcome to Beyond the 90, episode 2. This week we're going to talk about midfielders, potential signings. I'm here again with Neel. You right, Neel?
Hi, James. Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to this episode. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to it as well. And also joined by Ant as usual. You okay?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm looking forward to this one because I think this is the area of the pitch that we need to improve the most. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys got to say.
Yeah, me too. I think you're right. I think this is probably the one area that is probably a little bit easier to do because you can see gaps that you could potentially fill quite easily. So before we get started, I just want to touch on a bit of news. Probably everyone's seen the latest that Chilwells' agent's been talking to Chelsea. I think that's been going on all year, if I'm honest. What are your views on it, Neel?
It's something that, again, James, we've been talking about for a while, that this was going to happen, or his head's been turned. This was potentially the reason why he was left out of the squad against, I forget the team now, but when him and Chowdhury were sanctioned for that one match, and it was apparently because of, he got big-headed because of this. But out of all the players to lose out of our squad 11, he would be one of the weaker players. And we could get some big money for him, potentially because he's broken into the England squad. He's a great player. For the potential of him, he's going to be worth quite a bit of money. So the issue I find is that when we watch him game to game, we see him also almost like Mahrez. Mahrez was brilliant in stints and then would go very, very quiet or make some mistakes. And for the highlight reel, he looks amazing. In the same way, Chilwells looks amazing on the highlight reel, but he does make mistakes that you don't see unless you go and watch a full 90 minutes, whether that be in the stadium or whether you see the match. Whether he's going to go, I could see Frank Lampard tempting him and him going. Would he be a big loss? It just depends on who we can bring in as a left back. That's what I think.
Okay, maybe Lampard listened to our podcast last week and he's going to give us Alonso in exchange.
Big fan of James, I've heard.
And what are your views on it?
Well, for me, he's one of those players. He's so frustrating because you can see that he has moments of brilliance, but he also switches off during games and makes some of the most basic mistakes. So for me, there's clearly a good player in there, but I don't think even at his full potential, I don't think he's an elite left back. And for the money that we would be able to get for him if he was to go, I think we would be able to improve him at position, because I don't want to turn this into a bashing Chilwell session, because I do think he's a good player, but he is the weak point of our back four, and I think we could improve him.
Okay, I can understand that. No, I'm not going to turn this into a bashing Chilwell. My views are that he just wants more pay. Probably Chelsea could offer him a bit more that way, a bit more for his family, etc. So as someone that wants to look after his family, it's probably a good move for him. What would he win here compared to Chelsea? Not sure. The reason Kante left was to get trophies and medals and stuff, so he might potentially win more at Chelsea. It's a tough one. The question for you two is, what's going to happen with transfers after all the COVID stuff's over? Will the prices still be the same? Will they vastly drop? I think it's going to be a difficult one in the transfer market. And we could well see a lot of players going for less, but more wages.
It's going to be a different market than we're used to, because it's going to be clubs like lower down the table who've got some decent players who they're going to have to sell them for less just to be able to sustain and keep running. So it's really going to be in a market where you've got to take advantage of the situation, which sounds as awful as that sounds. It's like it's going to be a brave man's market.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think this might push a lot of prices down. I think even the big clubs are going to probably want profit and want it quickly to try and help balance the books a bit, I feel.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that's something that they could do and they'd be looking at, because it's, if the Newcastle thing was to be released, it's one of the reasons why Mike Ashley has accepted a bid for lower than he was for the holding price, because a lot of the clubs are just realising that we're not getting the money that we were expecting because of TV rights, because of the fans not filling the stadium, because we're not playing any games. So they are going to want to look at it. But it's, again, I do, from a Leicester perspective, I think we will buy the right players, and we've got the right people in to do that. I wasn't sure on Lee Congdon at the beginning, but his track record so far in finding players like Dennis Pratt and even Jose Perez to a certain extent, even though there's still more development to be done to him, will be really good. But I think overall it's going to show the gap between the giant multi-billion-pound clubs or multi-billion-pound owners and the smaller owners. And hopefully that's because over the years I feel like the gap has been bridged less and less with teams like Sheffield and Norwich and so forth this season. But coming forward, this might be the season where it starts to expand back out again, where you've got the top six and the other clubs.
Yeah, you might be true there, Neil. I'm probably thinking the same way. The top six will, I think, will be okay. Obviously, we don't know how badly King Power's been hit by the duty-free stuff that's going on and the COVID stuff. So I think only time will tell. So moving on to my second bit of news was around today that the Premier League have announced that they're hoping to play football again from June the 1st. However, I have also read that 12 Premier League clubs have rejected the restart proposal for the neutral grounds because they don't believe it will work. So I think although we might be able to start playing football again, it still seems way off. As we've all seen in the news, COVID is a lung-based disease and can give you long-term damage. What's going to happen if one of our best athletes, Jamie Vardy, gets tested positive, ends up in a hospital on a ventilator, and there's your best £1 million asset we've got in a lot of danger. I can't understand clubs wanting to do that, and I can't understand players putting themselves in that position that they could get permanently damaged. What do you guys think?
Anthony, do you want to go for this one?
It seems like the Premier League are trying to rush it back to get a conclusion and the season finished off, because for them, in terms of a financial point, it's a nightmare for them if this season doesn't get finished. But in terms of sort of the morals and sort of ethics of trying to finish a season where it's clearly not safe is ridiculous. And it should be clear at the point that it's not safe and stuff when you're having to change the rules and stuff and bend and adapt in every way possible to try and finish it.
Yeah, and I think you're right on this. I think me and you discussed the other day around this is a financial decision. It's got nothing to do with lives. It's got nothing to do with anything but money. We're also reading that if the Premier League gets cancelled, the Premier League will have to pay the TV companies in excess of 800 million. And they won't allow that, which is why they're adamant this has to return. And I've seen things about the Premier League are saying, well, if the bottom three don't comply, we'll relegate them straight away. That's a money decision straight away.
Yeah, imagine the lawsuits if that happens as well. The whole thing of integrity of football, if they were so keen about the integrity of football, why have they cancelled the youth leagues? Why have they cancelled the women's leagues? It's only the leagues that have got the money in that they're concerned about.
Yeah, and I see that the Bundesliga were like, oh, we're going to come back. Then all of a sudden, 3 of them test positive. And now that's in doubt whether that'll come back. It's just ludicrous, if you ask me.
Yeah, and was it yesterday that a Brighton player tested positive as well?
Three Brighton players.
It was 3 now, yeah.
Yeah, and you see fans, I'm not going to say which club, you can guess which club, accusing them of faking testing. And it's like, are you serious that you think that they would put fake results out just to prevent getting relegated?
And also there is another issue as well. It's like we saw against the PSG friendly. I can't remember who they were playing against. Yes, it was early days, but people were going down to the stadiums to cheer on their team. Now, with the football, I'm not saying it's going to be as bad or it's not going to happen, but there is a chance of that happening at these neutral grounds because they will be displayed on where they're going to be. And also with the internet now, even if they don't tell them, people will find out and it will spread like wildfire. So at the end of the day, we would like football to come back, but I just don't think it's a feasible thing in order to bring it back. I think a point that you mentioned, James, with the 800 million, that's literally the only reason why they're putting money over the lives of people. Now, the issue I have is we should be able to stop this league. We should be able to stop this and just end it here. But I don't want this to be at the risk of NHS workers, other people that are going down to the ground, and other people that are going to put their lives at risk for a game, essentially. And yes, we talk about football and transfers and stuff like this, but at the end of the day, if we can reduce the amount of people that are going to get this disease, and as you were saying, that could spread to our biggest assets, you could say a Jamie Vardy, but even something like a James Maddison, where he's a young up-and-coming talent, not even near his peak yet, and it's going to just increase in value as time goes on for the next few years. If he gets a lung disease like that and he isn't able to play, that's going to lose the teams so much more money, and then the lawsuits will come out. Again, the Premier League's in a lose-lose situation, but they are thinking about their own back pockets. That's the first time I've heard about the relegation thing as well, and I think that's disgusting, because there is a little bit of a big-headedness where we are the Premier League, we are the best, and we need to do what is best for us. But it's not. It's about what's best for the people, and the best thing they can do is to essentially end the league now and just suffer the consequences, because in the long term, it will probably be the best thing to do.
Yeah, for me though, I don't think this season you can sort of null and void, or whatever the expression is being used, because I think there has got to be a conclusion to this league. But to look to be playing football so quickly seems ridiculous. I think even if you've got to wait to play out this season, it does need to be finished. But I just don't see how they're looking to play games so quickly.
Yeah, and I think you're. I think one point I was thinking about earlier is the Champions League. So we're third, we're in a great position. If we play out the league and finish third, does that mean we're in the Champions League? Because UEFA could then say we're scrapping the Champions League for this season, rightly so, because no one can travel. And where does that then leave us? They could say, well, next year's qualification will need to be different. So we could end up playing a league, getting people injured just to come third, and might not get anything from it. I think until them decisions are made, it's difficult to know what to do. And also, as Neel just touched upon, you can't put NHS workers at risk and fans, etc. Because the neutral ground system thing is that no one plays at their own ground. However, if Man United playing at the King Power, I don't know, let's say against Watford, how many Man United fans are there in Leicester? Hundreds of them.
And they're going to be coming down from all over the country. It won't just be from Leicester. It will be from all over the country. They'll come. They've had worse situations where they think, we've survived worse. We'll support our team regardless. And especially with a fan base like Man United, they will come.
Yeah, the thing with United, they could play in London, they'll have fans there. They could play in Brighton, they could play absolutely anywhere in the country, and they'll have fans that will come and flock around the stadium.
I think you're right. Anyway, let's leave that subject there, lads, because I think we could probably do a full 3 hours on coronavirus and how to take that forward. So let's touch on the subject at hand, midfielders. Same as last week, one realistic one, and one suggestion that might cost us the stadium. So I'll start with you, Neel, your realistic one.
So I was thinking about this and the players we've got and where do we need to strengthen. So for my reasonable option, I've gone for Ismail Issar from Watford. So it was their record signing that they've gone. It looks like they're fighting a relegation battle at the moment. He really impressed me when he came when we went to Watford and we played there as well. So in his he's the right build. He's got 1.85 meters. So he plays on the right wing where Jose Perez can play. He's really pacey. He's good in the air and he can get past players, not just with his pace, but he's good with his feet as well. So this season so far, he's got 5 goals and 4 assists. And I think under the manager like Brendan Rodgers, I think he will be the perfect person to get the best out of him. And I still think he's the kind of player that, because he's 22, he'd worked perfectly in our squad. He'd play on the right-hand side with Barnes on the left. And it would just show, I think it would really show what we need in our squad and take it to the next level, because that's the one position that I think we're a bit weak in. Perez plays well, but in more of a front three. So he would be my choice. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think he's a good choice, actually. I haven't seen him play. He plays quite well. I think took a few games to bed into the Watford way of doing, but Pearson's got him firing on all cylinders. What do you think, Ant?
Yeah, he's the kind of player that we need, a direct player with pace, skill, and ability to cut in off the right hand side, which we haven't really had since Mahrez left. Because as much as I like Perez, he's not a winger and he's playing out of position. He's done all right, but I think Sarr would be a massive upgrade on him.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Your realistic one, Ant?
So my realistic one is again on the right hand side, and it's Emiliano Buendia from Norwich. So he's 23 years old, and something that surprised me when I was doing the research for this is he's created more chances than any other player in the Premier League, and he's also got himself 8 assists. So a very creative wide player, but he also presses very well, which would suit the system that Brendan Rodgers plays of trying to press high up the pitch and win the ball back. So for me, I think he would be the perfect kind of player that we need to be looking at.
I think is a good shout, that one. My only issue is doesn't he tend to drift in quite centrally? And that's one area that we've got Tielemans and Pratt and Maddison and Perez that can play that role. So he's one player that I actually looked at as well. But my only issue was he tends to drift inside a bit much, and that can leave the right-hand side quite exposed. And for example, if we've got Ricardo bombing up and down, we're going to need covering that position. So I think he's a great player, but that's my only concern with that.
Yeah, for Norwich, I agree with you. He does drift inside a bit, but I almost think that might be the system that they play with Max Aarons bombing forward, and then Tete almost covers him. But it's hard to know sort of how it would fit in at Leicester without seeing him play. But in terms of just the creativity and creating the most chances out of any player in a Norwich team that's bottom of the league, I just think that's something that can't be ignored.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, well, we've all seen what he does at Norwich. He's quite young, he'll learn, and he seems to be getting better and better.
If Norwich go down, you've got to feel that we'll be able to get him for quite cheap as well, because I know a lot of people turn their noses up at players from relegation teams, but when you look at Liverpool, they got Wijnaldum from Newcastle who went down. They got Robertson from Hull, I believe, who went down. And even if you look at our squad, when we got Maguire from Hull. So I don't think he's a player just because he's at the bottom of the league that you need to turn your nose up at.
And Johnny Evans as well, just realised.
Oh yeah, Johnny Evans, that's another one from West Brom, wasn't he?
Yeah. So again, they are there for the picking. It's just, again, the wines with Watford. If Watford get relegated, Sarr would be a great player to go for the exact same reasons that you were saying. You look at the squads that are going to go down; they'll need to sell players on. Players will want to still have the opportunity to play in the Premier League, and so yeah, I think he's a brilliant steal as well if he can play out on that wide right hand side, because that's the issue that Perez is really having at the moment. I think that's what we're all spotting as well. That when he gets that ball in that position, he doesn't quite take that ball and travel with it, take on a player, or it's got the pace to get past a player. So I think that's what we're both aiming at. What was yours, James?
Kind of got down to two. And the two that I picked were probably more with my heart than really thinking about anything else. Payet used to play for West Ham, went to Marseille, created the most chances in Europe last season, still having a great season. And the one that I was going to go for, which was my first choice, was Flavien Thauvin. But he got injured. He's not played all season. But last season, he was absolutely on fire. So I think either of them two, if Brandon could coach them, get them as good. But Payet for West Ham was amazing. He's gone to Marseille and done even better. My only thing against Payet is he's 33 years old, might be a bit old, but he would be that gap on that right side. He would fill that gap, and he would fill it so well.
The thing for Payet, though, isn't he more of a central player than a wide player? Because when he used to play down the left-hand side for West Ham, and a lot of West Ham fans weren't particularly sort of thrilled about that. And then Bilic moved him into the centre, and he absolutely flourished.
Yeah, and for Marseille, where he's created all the chances, he plays left wing.
Does he?
Yeah.
It's a hard one because 33, he almost seems like if it was 3-4 years ago, if we'd signed him directly from West Ham, it would have been great. But it feels like a little bit too late to be signing a player like that, just in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's so many players out there you think, well, he'd be good. And then you think, how much is they going to cost? How much are they going to cost? So I think realistically, they're probably around our price bracket, both of them. But I think everyone's come up with good choices, if I'm honest. Everything, we've actually done a week where it does actually seem like realistically we could get them players.
Yeah,
I think you've gone for the least realistic out of all of us, in my opinion. But yeah, it's not by much.
Yes, so going on to the unrealistic, yes, they'd be amazing in our squad. Neel, do you want to go first?
So I've limited my resources this time. I'm not going to go with Robertson like I did last week for left back, but I was thinking in what position do we need to fill? And again, I've gone for a winger. And if we could, I've gone for Traore, just because of the sheer pace, the power, and it's something we could really, really use in our squad just to get the ball and drive. That's the kind of position that we'd really need to fulfill. And one thing that our squad doesn't have, it has youth and it has potential, but it doesn't have physicality. He brings all of that and a bucket load of pace. I remember seeing him for Middlesbrough and thinking if he could just nail his intricacy and his passing, which at Wolves he seemed to do. And I think he'd be sensational for us for the exact reasons that I've just mentioned before. And I think he can get the best. I think Rodgers could get potentially even more out of him. If not, the same amount that Nuno has got would be sensational. And bearing in mind, they play a wing-back system. And he's not played every game, but he's played in Europa League and he's played in the Premier League as well. And Wolves have flown. So, yeah, that's my choice because I think he would be phenomenal on that right-hand side for us. What are your guys' thoughts?
So I'll go next.
I think he's... Oh, go on, James.
So I understand what you're saying. Yeah, great choice. He's had a great season for Wolves, and he would be phenomenal for us. And the way his crosses, I mean, even when he played us, his crosses are great. One thing that sticks out for me is I don't think we're very good at getting on the end of crosses. And we see all Brighton when he plays week in, week out, whipping balls in, but there's no one there. So I kind of get worried about what could he bring, because Jamie Vardy's more, I need the ball at my feet rather than let's whip balls in. I don't know what you two guys think of that, but that's probably one of my gaps I've seen quite a lot lately is when we whip balls in, there's never anyone there to get on the end of it.
But you look at the way Wolves play, they don't play with particular height as well in their midfield and in their strike force. It's a brilliant strike force, but it's similar to Leicester in the fact that it's kind of counter-attacky. They push forward quite well, and there isn't really a target man. Jimenez is a great, great player, but he's not really the kind of player that you can really go on and nail to like as in with the headers and stuff. So I think if he works in a team like that, and Leicester and Wolves are quite similar in that perspective, that's why I think he would work really well in our squad.
To be fair, I think Jimenez is more suited to the ball in the air than Vardy is, because he does score the occasional header, but when you sort of look at how Jimenez sort of controls the ball in the box and stuff from when the balls come in, he can sort of play football with his back to goal a lot more, which is why I think he makes Adama look very good. I'm not saying he's a bad player at all, but I don't think that we need a winger who's just going to be putting crosses into the box, which I know there's more to Adama's game than that, but I almost feel like we've moved on beyond that point.
Yeah, possibly. So let's move across to you, and who is your unrealistic one?
My unrealistic one, which sounds strange, but he's going to be playing where he is Calvin Phillips of Leeds United. And for me, the reason I've gone for Calvin Phillips is when Ndidi got injured, there was a huge drop-off in sort of the quality of performances when Chowdhury came in. And I like Chowdhury, but I think for me, his best role is to come off the bench and help finish off games. And for me, I think Calvin Phillips will be a bit of an upgrade on Chowdhury, as well as offering something better, something different than Ndidi. I don't want to say better because Ndidi is brilliant at breaking up play. I don't think there's a player better in the league than him at it. But Calvin Phillips, he's much better at sort of distributing the ball and with the ball at his feet. So I think he could sort of fit quite well into Brendan Rodgers' philosophy, because obviously he's been playing under Bielsa for the last couple of years, and Leeds play a similar style to what Leicester are.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's a great player. Why is he unrealistic, though, would be my question.
Because if Leeds go up, which looks more than likely will happen, I can't see them selling him for any amount.
Possibly. I think, yeah, maybe you're right. I just thought he'd probably, if we got Champions League football, he'd maybe want to play in the Champions League and might be thinking, Leeds are not going to be able to give me the wages, the security that Leicester could give me. And that's kind of the way I see it. But maybe you're right. If they came up, they'd be like us. They'd be saying, well, if you want to talk to him, 90 million plus.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, being a Leeds fan that he is, he would probably want to play at least the first season in the Premier League with his boyhood club after the journey that he's been on with them, obviously failing to come up last year and then this year having an absolutely outstanding season.
Yeah, and one thing I could see as well is that obviously with that, so I think out of our midfield, that's our strongest position in the CDM, because Ndidi is very strong and Chowdhury, I think, is slowly developing into a great player, and he's the kind. But so to have three of them in one go, that I think that's just a bit too much. I think so. Overall, I would say that Chowdhury is developing and he's not flying into tackles as much as he used to. And you see in this parts of the season now, he picks his battles and he knows when to go forward and he knows when to pull out. And yeah, so I agree. And I don't know if we were able to get him, and I think he would stay. But yeah, I can understand why it's a far reach. I think he would be a great addition, but I couldn't see him getting into our first 11.
For me, I see the point you're making, but for me is we need to be building a squad, just not just a starting 11, particularly if we want to be going deep into the Champions League like we did last time we were in it and having cup runs. And for me as well, once Ndidi did get injured, there was such a drop-off in performance when Chowdhury came in. I like Chowdhury as a player, but I don't think he's up to the level to be starting yet.
Yeah, you're probably right, and I think he will get there. And the thing is, with Ndidi, you know that he's a rock. You know what you're going to get game in, game out. Does a job, comes in, does a job. Never really gets below a 6 or a 7 rating. And you kind of know what you're going to get. And he's probably one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. But you are going to get to a stage, even next season, where the attention he gets is going to be huge. And I think he's got great roots here, but you might struggle to keep hold of him because players at the end of the day will want to win trophies and medals. And he's not won anything since he's been here. And that might be a swaying point, and also money. So I think it's a difficult one. But again, great call with the Leeds. I think he'd do great here. My unrealistic one, I thought, well, who did Neel go for last week? So I need to go for someone of that calibre. So I have gone for Koke from Atletico Madrid. Potentially one of the best midfielders in the world. Yes, he would probably cost us about 250 grand a week. Yes, he'd probably cost us in excess of 130 million to buy, but he would be immense. I like Maddison, don't get me wrong, he's a great player, but he does drift in and out of games, and there's some games where he doesn't seem to turn up. Whereas we need someone that's going to be consistent, and he's that consistent player. So he was probably my first choice. Although I do like Bruno Fernandes, Man United. I think he's a great signing for them. Although he's only played a handful of games, he does look the real deal.
Could I ask why you would pick a central player rather than a winger? What was your methodology behind that?
Because sometimes in the centre, I feel we get overrun as a midfield. Whenever Man City, we got definitely overrun. De Bruyne was having an absolute field day in the centre of the park.
I think, I agree with that. And I think part of that's come down to Tielemans' fitness not being what it was when he was on loan. This year, he hasn't had a bad season, but he just hasn't looked as sharp and as fit as he was when he was on loan with us last year.
He set the bar so high last season with what happened as well. So anything that was less than pretty much was a 9 out of 10 performance, was going to look mediocre. And he's been decent at times, but he's as you were saying, he drifts in and out of games. His fitness has not been as good. And hopefully they can address that for when we continue, whenever the next match will be. But yeah, no, I totally agree.
If they can't address it, I've got a solution.
Well, go on, James.
Bench him. He needs benching. If he's had this big break, if he doesn't come back hitting all gears running, then the one thing I felt was when he was drifting in and out of games, he was poor. He had about 4 or 5 games where he was poor in every single game, but he doesn't get benched. And I think it's along the lines of the Chilwell conversation we had last week, is that players have got no competition. They just seem to get played no matter what they do.
Thing is, he does have competition, though, which is the thing that I found frustrating, because Prayet, when he came in, has been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's just one of them confusing things for me. Is why don't you, if they're not, surely as a manager you want to play your informed team, and if someone's not performing right, how long do you give them before you say, look, it's causing issues with the team? But you seem to get him week in, week out, and even Rodgers came out and said he's tired. Well, it's not surprised he's tired. You play him in every single game.
Yeah, and going back to the point, I know I said it last week as well, but it must be so disheartening for Prayet to come in, play really well for 90 minutes and then be on the bench next week.
Yeah, and I think we said the same thing about Fuchs last week. That when he does come in, he does an amazing job, but then next week he's back on the bench, and it must be a bit disheartening.
Well,
Yeah,
what I
same
can,
for... Oh, go on.
what I can say for Tielemans is that he has been, towards the end of the season, Pratt has had a lot more of an involvement in that, with replacing either Maddison or Tielemans in that role. And after playing superbly a couple in the cup games and stuff like that, he's coming to the forefront more. So with Fuchs and Chilwell, it's a different story, because Chilwell's always going to get the run-in unless he's injured. But with that midfield position, I feel like Rodgers is starting to change his mind a little bit more, and saying to players like Tielemans, if you don't book your ideas up and you don't perform to what I know is of you, you will be benched, and I've got a perfect replacement in that. So before Tielemans, last season, Tielemans didn't actually have anybody that would fill his position. It was when we played 4-1-4-1, we couldn't really stick any other midfielder there that would do that same role. So now we've got Pratt in, we've got somebody that, Pratt's an all-round box-to-box midfielder, which is brilliant, but it would replace the Tielemans role. So there is somebody breathing down his neck for that. And I think Rodgers is slowly changing as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, guys, it's been a brilliant podcast. Next week, we're going to look at the striker options. I can really see some really unrealistic strikers coming out in that. If I'm perfectly honest.
I've got them already. 400 million, here we go.
So let's see what next week brings. It's been great both chatting with you guys, and I'll talk to you both next week. So thanks, Neel. Hope you have a great week.
You too, mate. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Ant.
No worries. Talk to you next week.
Thanks. Bye.